because this next moment is going to preach for you and for everybody else. So I didn't listen to him. And I went out that next day. I had like 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists, right? During this time of lockdown, you know, you could talk or whatever it is. You know, you don't really get a chance to get visits. So it got to a point where after I learned the information in the case that he pointed out to me, I started to write letters, but I also started to become dejected and say to myself, if this man has been incarcerated for 18 years, can go on my case and find something that's glaringly indicative of my innocence, then are you telling me that the court system allowed this and they knew this all along? And that, to me, became scary. It became real. And I was no longer that Southside boy on his porch eating an icy cup, thinking that his world was perfectly fine. And so over the next month, I stopped responding to letters. I stopped calling, you know, my mom, and man, I'm sorry.
No worries. Go on.
So now, you know, I just became, I became dejected. I stopped responding to letters, and a guard came to my door one night, and this probably had to be going on like 3-4 weeks. But I just stopped responding to letters, man. I'm getting letters from our friends. They sending me pictures. You know, they didn't have trunk parties. You know, they going to school. You know, and I'm sitting in here with a mandatory release of February of 2007. You understand what I'm saying? And this is now, actually it was 2020, like 2021 or something like that was my mandatory release. I was eligible for parole in 2007, and this was 1999 now, right? So I just stopped, like I just didn't want to, it became too difficult to have these conversations continuously about, man, we just got to hold out hope, or man, we just got to, any moment we should hear this. And in any moment, it just became too much. And I knew I couldn't take away the pain, you know, from my mother and stuff like that. So I just wanted to just, you know what I'm saying? Just like not deal with it. And so a guard comes to my cell. He's like, man, we need you to come out here and go to this visiting room. And I'm like, what for? He's like, your mother's up here. And she keep calling the warden's office. So I'm like, look, my mother literally would not stop calling. My mother and my aunties would call the warden's office, you know, to get them. So I go on this visit. And I hadn't seen my mother now. This had been like, this seems like, as I'm telling the story, it's so hard to tell every detail. That's why people can go get my book to go check out every detail. But the thing about prison is this. It doesn't necessarily go slow. It actually goes fast. And that's the scary thing about it. Because your life is going like that, like the flick of a calendar. And so I seen my mother now for now, this was like going on a year for the first time. And man, it looked like she had aged 30 years, you know? I came off of the visiting room, and I'll never forget. I would never forget what it looked like to see her face and those wrinkles and creases of anguish on her forehead, and her just saying, I'm gonna love you no matter what. And I believe you no matter what, because I know you no matter what. And I left off of that visiting room, and the next day when I walked to lunch, I threw my gym shoes in the garbage can because I stopped playing basketball from that very day. And I went to the law library and I started to learn the law. And over the course of 2 to 3 years, I was able to grasp the law well enough that I was litigating on behalf of inmates who were there and winning all type of sentence modifications and rule infraction overturning. And I drafted my own habeas petition. And when I drafted that habeas petition, I forwarded it along to the Wisconsin Innocence Project. They came and they visited me. They agreed to take my case, and they argued my case all the way up to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, where the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals unanimously overturned my conviction for the very thing, that witness statement. And that we found out through the litigation that they had withheld a 3-page statement from this same young man. And he provided clarity and context where he said, not only was I there when that girl invited his 2 friends up and himself, which was me and my 2 friends, I was also there in the smoking area when all of them came back downstairs after the argument with her roommate. So brother, you tell me, how me and my friends committing a gang rape, right? And fleeing a building with this kid who we were playing video games with. We didn't know him. We just met him at the party. He wasn't our friend. He was a white kid who had told them that very day, the next day when they started investigating, he had told them what happened. And so do you think it was a mistake that didn't make it into our possession? No. They decided that they were going to write a police report that would be testified to, and that would be the same historical connotations that they've used forever to paint black men. Listen, right now, because of the historical nature in which black men were presented, if you say a black man did anything to a white woman or a white person in general, you automatically are robbed of your presumption of innocence that's supposed to be afforded to us through the Constitution. Whether you want to believe that or it's difficult for people to accept, whether white or black, it is most certainly true, right? It doesn't mean that everyone who isn't black is racist. That's not what it means at all. But I think we need to start acknowledging that these aren't just accusations and folk tales and stuff like that. This is systematic racism played out.
Brother.
So
no. This. I want those who are watching this and who are listening to this thing. I want people to sit in that for a little bit, man. I want that to breathe. I want the track to breathe. The reality of Domain's testimony, the clarity, the uncomfortable truth that did not go along with the narrative and railroading, and utilizing a perfectly designed system for this outcome. And also on that end, there's like this almost Joseph narrative of like you indicate, this unlikely person who points out, fam, this isn't the way it needs to be. You going through a real human experience of being dejected by that. Your mother, even as one suffering, even as one taking responsibility for something that she couldn't really take responsibility for, affirming her love for you, and you feeling the pain of that, but also then that also spurring you, right? Even as you tried to get away, even as you tried to disconnect, I don't want to talk, I don't want to respond, I don't want nothing. She pursued you. And you were in that moment, you saw the suffering, but you also saw a purpose. You got motivated to move in this way. And so, like, to your point, right? I'm so thankful that you did pen this in Redeeming Justice, in the book, that I'm so excited that people will be able to get their hands on. But there's no other than that outside of putting this on screen and even like reliving this for people to understand the moment by moment suffering and anguish that you went through, how instrumental her encouragement, even those things that you didn't respond to, those letters, those prayers, and then her showing up and still affirming it